Buenas and Hafa Day. Thank you everyone for being here today with us. The Committee on Border Safety and Maritime Transportation will now convene for this roundtable hearing. Today is Wednesday, April 13, 2022, and it is 1:03 p.m. in the afternoon. For the record, and in accordance with the open government law, public notices were sent out via email to all senators, stakeholders, and the Guam Daily Post on Wednesday, April 6, 2022, and the second notice on Monday, April 11, 2022. Notice of today's hearing was also available on the Guam Legislature's website. With me today, we have Senators Chris Duenas, Senator Pito Terlahi, and Senator Tello Taidagui. Thank you, Senators, for joining us today. The agenda for the roundtable hearing is to provide an update to the community and listening audience from the Guam Customs and Quarantine Agency in addressing the following items. The first one will address concerns a portion of the budget, which is the current status of CQA's hazardous duty payment pursuant to the appropriation made in Public Law 36-54. The second item on the agenda is the ARP Funds, the current status of ARP Funds, how much was received and how much was expended, and on what it was expended on. As a background, Public Law 33-195 amends subsection 6225 of Article 2, Chapter 6, Title 4, GCA, identifying custom officers as hazardous duty positions. The Government of Guam's FY 2021 Budget Act, which was lapsed into law as Public Law 36-54, not only determined appropriation amounts of Government of Guam, but also amended other things. Amongst other amendments, one of them being an amendment to Public Law 33-195, which further entitled custom officers to receive hazardous duty pay calculated at the rate of such officer's wage plus 10%. Additionally, on April 14, 2021, my office sent a letter to Customs and Quarantine Agency requesting how much in hazardous pay is owed to customs officers since the enactment of Public Law 33-195. The response dated on May 3, 2021 stated from FY 2017 to FY 2021, the Guam Customs and Quarantine Agency was owed $2,979,869 in retroactive hazardous pay. A year later, I again sent a letter to the Department of Administration requesting the current status of processing the hazardous duty payments, along with the timeline of when such payments will be dispersed to CQA. Department of Administration responded on March 29, 2022, which stated it is currently under review by their payroll division personnel, and they anticipate majority of the work to be done within the next 8 weeks. Just to clarify, the year later when we sent the letter marks the anticipation of the public law that we addressed in 36-54, okay? The next 8 weeks is fast approaching. Our committee should roughly receive a response by May 24, 2022. As we wait for the proper response from DOA, we are here to address the hazardous duty payments set forth in Public Law 36-54, and hopefully with this roundtable hearing, we may better understand the fund mechanisms hindering this payout. So I understand that Customs and Quarantine since 2017 has tried to acquire hazardous duty pays for their officers. However, there has been a dual interpretation of the law between the Customs and Quarantine Agency and DOA. We rectified that in Public Law 36-54, so there was no confusion. And so now CQA is supposed to create an MTO of their categories for their hazardous duty pay. And that is really what we are waiting on to see how we are moving forward with Department of Administration, ensuring that the officers get paid out. And then after we discuss that, we will discuss the status of the ARP funds. Okay? Mr. Director, I'll now invite you for testimony, or if you'd like to afford the time to any of the members you brought here today, can you please introduce them also and state your name for the record? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman here. My name is Ike Paredo. I'm the Director for the Customs and Quarantine Agency. To my right is Chief of Customs Vince Paris. To my left is Pilar Carballo, is my ASO. So I would like to start out by saying that with regards to the hazardous pay for customs officers, and that is the back pay, what I did is that I initiated, when this law was passed, I initiated a team to put together a project to review all the timesheets, because we're talking about 5 years span time that we need to really look at how we can best accumulate all this information and see to it that we meet whatever requirements that are imposed by the agency before we submit it to DOA. And we've been working with DOA on this particular format. And so my team that I put together specifically just to work on this particular project. And today I'm happy to share with you and this committee what has come out of that particular committee. So the most important thing is that we've been collaborating with DOA to make sure that we are doing what it takes to ensure that we provide accurate information. So timesheets recording and appropriate dates and times for payment of hazardous pay according to Public Law 3654 were received by DOA. We submitted that on February 22nd, our final review. From there, DOA and CQA discussed submissions and concluded that CQA will prepare a summary of each officer's qualifying hours by pay period and fiscal year. So through the collaborations with DOA, DOA came back stating that they have been reviewing the submissions and related timesheets in accordance to the requirements that they have put out. And so this review is almost completed. As of yesterday, the latest word that I got is that DOA expects to be able to pay appropriate hazardous pay on Friday, April 22nd. And that's the next available non-standard payroll payment date. April 22nd? Yes, which is next Friday.
Is this a lump sum? Will this be the lump sum that is owed to every officer?
So according to our coordination with payroll, they're going to go ahead and do the lump sum per year owed every officer. So it'll be broken down by year, but it will be a lump sum.
So that's the so that's the latest that I've got with my communications with DOA, and I'm glad to report that out today.
Thank you, Director. Is there anyone else that would like to give testimony? No? I think we're very excited to hear that it's just right around the corner. And so Senator Taitagui is in my ear already. So if we don't mind, I'd like to offer her the ability to first ask questions, and then I'll go to Senator Pito.
Thank you so much. I just wanted, when did you submit all the information that was needed to DOA? Because according to the letter, they're taking... Yeah.
February 22nd? 22nd.
So everything was submitted to
Yes.
DOA? Okay, that's all my question.
Are there any other questions, Senator Pito?
Not a question, but are we talking about 3 million that they need to give? Is that confirmed with DOA already?
Yes.
That they do have the
Yes.
the 3
It's in the
million
budget.
to compensate whatever they need to? Okay. Okay.
Senator, it's part of the appropriation for the last budget cycle, so it's in our budget that was
It's
provided.
an appropriation. It has nothing to do with the
No,
American Rescue Plan.
no.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
correct, Senator Pito.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
So just to reiterate that the $3 million was an appropriation we did in the last budget, and that is from the general fund. So that we ensured that that money was available and there would not be any setbacks for you or CQA being able to access that money for the specific payment for their hazardous pay. That's good news, thank you. And so the first payment is April 22nd for 2017, and then what is the timeline for the consecutive payments for the consecutive years?
So again, with my discussion with payroll is because the way we set up the timesheets and the auditing, the review, the analysis is by fiscal year, every officer, how much they're owed per year, it's a total amount that they'll be able to pay out, I believe, everything. So that, I mean, we can get clarification, but again, it's the reason why we set it up lump sum on their total hours owed is so that they'll be able to process that. So the entire hours owed per officer per year.
Okay, so they will get a lump sum for the years 2017 to current,
Actually, yeah, just
when the
one
public law
fiscal year
was
in
in
22 is included.
Okay.
And in one fiscal year in 2016, actually, because it's December 2016, all the way until 2022, the first pay period is not included. Is included.
Oh, that's very good. Are the officers aware of this?
No.
Not at this time.
Now they are?
Probably now.
I know.
They're probably watching.
That's great news.
But,
Director.
Senator, let me just say thank you for your support in this matter, because sometimes it takes a lot of coordination and assistance to move these things forward. And I'm glad that we're at this stage right now. So the officers are very complacent insofar as trying to give them an update of what's happening. And I've been doing that.
Yes.
I've been telling them that this is what's happening, and we're moving forward.
Thank you, Director. Senator Duenas, do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions, but I just want to thank the team. That's great work, and I'm sure the men and women in blue are going to be very, very happy that this is brought to date. So I'll just continue on to listen, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Tello, do you have another question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The question I have is, when you keep referring to this last budget bill or we're in current FY22 budget. So when you're talking about last budget bill, you're talking about 2021, FY 2021 that the money's in there, or is it in 2022?
2020? Yes.
Okay, so it is in the current budget law that
Yes,
requires
yes.
that. Okay, and moving forward in the FY 23, did the governor recognize, because under DOA, did the governor recognize that in 2023, her budget incorporated this hazard pay moving
Yes,
forward?
yes,
It's already
included.
incorporated. Okay, thank you.
Yes, so just as another recap, the budget law from FY 2022, which was Public Law 36-54, that afforded for the retroactive hazardous pay, and it also afforded for hazardous pay moving forward. So we clarified that in the public law. We made the amendment in the public law for the current statute, so they would actually have an avenue and a path for them to receive that. The interpretation was, it was being interpreted by two different agencies differently. So to avoid any confusion, we corrected that statute. All right. If there are no more questions, so April 22nd, our officers will be paid.
Yes.
Great. And I'd also like to thank the members of the legislature, because without their help and their support, of course, this wouldn't have not been possible.
It came
So,
from this office.
yeah. And thank you for CQA for working with us, the leadership, for your hard work in ensuring that you're taking care of our officers in the line. We really appreciate all of your efforts. And I know you did a great deal of work, so thank you so much. Okay, can we move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the ARP funds? Maybe just give us a breakdown of how much was received, how much has been expended, what is the current amount that you have that has yet to be expended, and what you expended the funds on.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
I'm just going to start out by saying that my agency received $3.5 million on APR funding, and I will let my ASO give you an overview of what this particular funding source is going to be used for.
Okay, so yes, CQA received $3.5 million. To date, we've expended $1,914,567, and what we expended it for is for our differential, the COVID differential pay of about $310,000, and that's paying up until December. And then we have, we're about to expend $1,604,567, and that is for the customs and quarantine trainees, and we're looking at about 30 recruits.
And the remainder?
Oh, I'm sorry. And so, well, the balance to date comes out to $1,585,433. So with the remainder, what we're trying to do is we're working with BBMR, and we kind of laid out our plan on what we want to use it for. And then I also shared that with you. So we're working closely with BBMR in trying to move the money so that we're able to expend the rest, the remaining balance.
Is there a plan for what you what you will spend the remaining balance on?
Yes, I mean, I have a list. Part of it is we're hoping we're able to use it for some promotions. We are still shortfall our rent with the airport, so I'm hoping we are able to take care of a portion of it, at least bring it down. We still owe the airport. And then, of course, just all the support, supplies, materials, and equipment that we need for the recruits, the 30 recruits.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll now open it up to Senator Pito. Do you have any questions? Okay, Senator Brown, do you have any questions? No, do you have any questions now? I'm offering the table to you. Do you have any questions now? As the chair, I'm offering, do you have any questions? Okay, you will, I guess you're forfeiting your opportunity. Senator Chris Duenas?
So, yeah, Director, and I guess moving over to the SO, I mean, it's really nice to know that you'll be using the 1.1 million for the recruitment of officers. I guess my question would be, will your budget sustain this because you're using ARP, maybe because of attrition and lost officers and what you need to replace? Meaning that because I know we're going to be going over your fiscal year budget request soon, and so and maybe Chief can jump in. So basically just want to make sure that it will be seamless as possible. This is a great use of ARP, don't get me wrong. I just wanted to make sure that as we get into your budget, that it's basically going to be able to fold in to your regular budgetary to manage the employees that we'll be bringing on board.
Thank you, Senator. So when we're looking at our budget, and you realize that in going back to how we normally collect passenger fees in order to run our organization, currently because of the COVID-19 situation, we have not gotten to that place where we are collecting sufficient amounts of funding to be able to carry on. So when we hired these 30, we're also in the middle of our first year from public law that allowed us to hire 3 cycles. So in moving forward, when we absorb the cost, we're still going to need additional funding through whatever means, through the ARP or through supplemental appropriations. So yes, to answer your question, we will need to kind of look at acquiring more funding.
Okay, good. And I know it's for the next hearing, but I think your hero just arrived, the DOA director, so maybe we'll ask him about that too eventually. But that makes sense. If we're still covering over, then we will need either general fund appropriations or if the governor decides that ARP is a better fit, or maybe through our dialogue. But thank you for the answer. But if in a perfect world though, when your fees kind of levelize and get back, I would imagine that all these cycles you're running really probably are going to bring your manpower back to where you need it to be, right? It wouldn't necessarily be a major jump going forward. I'm sure you need the manpower based on attrition and the like, correct?
Yes. So we have a plan to hire, and so once we get to that number where we need to be, of course, it will level out. So eventually, when we do get there, The other thing that we're looking at is addressing the fees so that we can adjust it. It's been, I think, maybe 12 or 15 years that we last adjusted the passenger fee. So that's one of the things that we would like to do so that it becomes more realistic in a pre-COVID situation. Of course, you can't address it and use the current data. I mean, it'll really impact negatively passengers' capability to come in. So these are the things that we're considering. Thank you.
Excellent, Chief. Thanks. That's all the questions I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Dueñas. Senator Titlegy?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'm going to try and just keep this to ARP funding, because I'm pretty sure when it comes budget time, we're going to be asking a whole lot more questions, and for the sake of time. Does any of the funding that you used for ARP funding cover any shortage for those officers who were deployed for military leave or anything? Did you use any of the ARP funding to, in other words, substitute those who were deployed and brought in? None? No? Okay. Was any ARP funding used for overtime to any of your officers to pay overtime?
We're paying this much using the COVID differential.
Okay, but not the ARP funding at all, just COVID funding? Because there's two sets. Remember the money that we received at the beginning, right, of COVID, and then we received this $587 million that came in from ARP funding. And we do know that the governor allocated the 3.50, but is any of the ARP funding, which you have now a balance, because I had actually had a balance here of 3.222 balance as of March 31st. So in the last 13 days, it looks like you guys did a lot of spending, close to almost $1 million plus additional. So my question again is that you said you used COVID funding, but did you use any ARP funding at all to cover any overtime?
So we've used our ARP to cover for the COVID-19 differential pay. So that's what we are using.
Okay.
Yeah.
Correct.
So you did use money for?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, to cover those overtimes.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I was going to ask you about training cycle recruitment, but it was kind of brought up earlier. This is all stuff for your public hearing when it comes down for budget. So, yeah, and it looks like too, because, I brought the numbers with me today, and it looks like you have been in the last 13 days from March 31st has spent quite a bit of the funding. And yeah, you did mention the balance. When you talk about promotions, you're going to be using ARP funding, the remaining balance for promotions. Can you kind of explain that?
So historically, we don't have any funds for promotions. So at this time, taking a look at what our plan was for ARP, with the director's guidance is, he'd really like to take care of recruitment and then the promotion. So Customs hasn't promoted since, it's been years. So at this time, yes, we're going to take advantage of being able to see what we can do for the officers, and promotions is definitely one of them, how we can support them in that.
So once you do these promotions, it comes with an increase in salary, correct? So
Definitely, yes.
That's correct.
So
and so that's where, right now we're looking at, working with BBMR, seeing what our cost impact is,
Great.
Coming up with that number, seeing how we can utilize just to take care of the initial promotions with ARP, and then, with our fingers crossed, fiscal year 2023, looking at, during the budget hearings, having that discussion with all of you.
Okay.
Senator, can I just say something
Sure,
about
please.
that?
Please.
Part of this plan was already.
Talking to the mic.
Part of this plan was in our fiscal year 2020 budget, but COVID came into the picture, and from there we saw the impact of what COVID did to our agency because of the decline in passengers. But we have made it known to the officers that we will take care of them. And that's why I'm moving forward with this. And that's the reason why we're trying to push this, to
Thank
appease
you.
these officers.
Thank you, Chief. Has any of the ARP funding used to purchase any equipment and vehicles?
So at this time, we have not expended. However, again, in our initial plan, that's included, is to be able to, we're hoping we'll be able to use some funds to purchase some vehicles,
Okay.
much needed vehicles, yes.
And will you be purchasing this through the emergency procurement, or will you be purchasing this under regular procurement process?
No, we're going to have to go ahead and take the regular procurement
Okay,
process.
thank you.
We've also done a little bit of research, and there are some vehicles on the IDIQ, the indefinite quantity, so we're hoping to be able to utilize that route.
Okay. Other than that, I appreciate all the work you're doing, and I think you might want to keep an eye on the infrastructure bill, the bipartisan infrastructure bill that provides all this type of equipment in your prospective agency because of, transportation, et cetera. So the ARP funding could probably be set aside for something else, like you mentioned earlier, but equipment and supplies could actually fall under that, and that's quite a bit of money there. So
Yes,
should
that's
take
true.
advantage
We're following
of equipment and stuff like that instead of ARP money. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Tyree. Director Byrne, thank you for joining us today. I just have one question for you, just to confirm that we are anticipating our CQA officers to be paid out their retroactive hazardous pay on April 22nd?
Thank you, Senator, and I apologize for my late arrival. I thought that this was a Zoom meeting, and that's a mistake in my calendar. Yes, that is our plan. We are, payroll has informed me that we have substantially completed the review of the submitted timesheets and time records. And because this Friday is a Guam pay day, we're expecting to pay this accrued amount next Friday, which is not a Guam pay day because it allows payroll to actually process these payments.
Great, thank you. It's good to hear confirmation from DOA, so thank you for being here. Yes, we will have a lot of questions when we start moving into our budget hearing because we know that we're still short on the passenger arrivals, which will directly impact CQA. I know that there's also an interest to increase passenger fees. We'd like to explore that to see what we can do to assist the agency. We want to ensure that the officers and the line are taken care of, especially since you are the guardians of our ports of entry. So we'd like to thank you for all your hard work and the hardworking men of the Customs and Quarantine Agency. Senator Brown, do you have any questions at this time?
You're too kind. Yes, I do have one. I want to follow up because I've noticed this trend. I mean, I understand the need to address promotions for employees, but I'm kind of taken aback because, at a time when we're going through so many challenges in our community, at a time when the legislature, through public funding, is really subsidizing the payroll of your agency because of the impact, obviously, to our visitor arrival on the island, that you would go ahead and do this at this time and then expect the legislature and the people of Guam to absorb these additional costs without knowing what the revenue stream is going to be moving forward. I see this as a trend, and I would really like to know how much it was involved, if you could provide that to the legislature in writing, what the financial impact is, because I'm just taken aback that that's a priority at a time when you're not even able to exist on your own funding. And these decisions are being made without regard to the overall impact of funding for the government. We're seeing promotions being made and additional costs. We're seeing additional hiring that's happening in the government using these federal funds with no concern as to how the government of Guam is going to absorb the additional costs and the rate, taxpayers of Guam are going to absorb the additional cost. We're seeing more money again put into, promotions and increasing salaries on federal money at a time when, a huge segment of our private sector is not operational. So I wanted to understand the logic. I understand, if your employees have been going without promotions for some time, but why is it during this time that's so critical when you really don't have enough money to exist on your own with regards to your revenue stream that you're prioritizing spending more money, knowing that the federal money is temporary?
Thank you for the question, Senator. Yes, of course, we have reviewed that. We have communicated with the front office insofar as trying to ensure that we can identify the needed funding source to move forward with the promotion. And we're doing our due diligence with respect to trying to find the needed funds to appease these officers who've been with the agency. Some of them have been here for 20 years. And it's time for us to also open our eyes and provide this type of incentive to the employees. And of course, we're going through attritions, and we're looking at that as a saving clause.
Well, were you taking any money out of the existing vacancies to pay the difference? I mean, how are you going about that? Because what if you don't have the revenue coming in next year to fund all of this? What are your priorities in terms of what you're going to sacrifice? We don't live in a time of, money's going to keep falling from the sky, or that Uncle Sam's going to keep paying the bill. And I'm just a little concerned that we continue to add to the financial obligations of our people with no idea how down the road in the near future we're going to pay for it on our own dime.
I understand. But we got to just move forward, find what's the best solution. And I'm optimistic that we're going to get our economy back in order. We've been reviewing the information from GVB. Our borders are starting to see an increase in the number of passengers coming in, and hopefully that we can survive with that.
Well, I hope so, because I'm sure when the proposal, if it's put forth to increase the passenger fee, I'm sure there's going to be concern, particularly at a time when you're going to want to revive tourism, to start making Guam a more expensive destination. I don't see how that's a winning formulation to encourage more travelers to come to Guam if we're going to make it more expensive for people to come to Guam. So I just think there's a bigger picture, Mr. Director. I mean, you're in a position to look at that broader perspective. I understand how favorable it can be to go, our guys need the promotion. I'm sure all people in all agencies are going to want to say, I need a lot of things. But again, the timing of when this is happening, and to me, I'm really wondering what's the real agenda, because if we're being financially mindful, especially at a time your agency is not able to pick up its own bill, you're being subsidized out of general fund money that is not going to other critical services in the government, and granted because of the pandemic and the effect. But I don't think it's an opportunity to take advantage of the situation and add more cost to our community at a time when we're still struggling. Our economy is still struggling. This illusion of, money's falling all over the place is very temporary. And when the fall comes, what are we going to do? I just think we need to start making responsible decisions and stop abusing the funds, and especially there's no public accounting until after the fact. Now we're hearing about it now this afternoon, that you're using federal money to pay for promotions. And I just don't think that's right. I think that those things should not be put out there after the fact and then expect the people to pay for it. So with that, Madam Chair, thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you, Senator Brown. Just to clarify, are you using ARP funds for promotions, or are you using FY22 budget for the promotions?
So at this time, again, it's our plan to explore for promotions. So of course, in 22, we're going to use what we have. We've already been appropriated. And so the difference is really what we're looking at for for the promotions through the ARP. And then from that in 23, that's where we're looking at the cost impact, or we're working with BBMR in looking at the projections, looking at the cost impact. And so yes, we are using ARP for the promotions, the difference for the promotions.
Okay, I see the concern of my colleague is, how do we sustain if we're going to use this one-time drop of money, the ARP funds, for the promotions? Is there going to be an exchange? Do you see attrition happening? Is the agency reorganizing? Is there anything going on there that will ensure the sustainability of CQA after the promotions happen, after all of the ARP funds are exhausted? That's the concern. So perhaps, Director, you can think about that as well and see how we move forward. Like you said, you're taking a look at the cost estimate for 23, but it's not just 23 that we're concerned about, it's also 24, 25, and 26, right? Mm-hmm. The upcoming years. Because if CQA is having a difficult time funding itself and Again, we're looking at this year that it would have to be supplemented by the general fund. We need some real data that justifies the sustainability of those decisions.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, if there are no further questions at this time, I'd like to thank everyone for being here. And we'll now adjourn this roundtable hearing. The committee will continue to accept written testimony for the next 10 working days. If there are any, testimonies may be sent via email to Senator T.C. Nelson at guamlegislature.org or delivered to the office of Senator Cruz Nelson at Suite 202 Alpha 173, Espinal Avenue, Hagåtña, Guam 96910. A recording of today's hearing will be available on YouTube at the Guam Legislature Media website on YouTube. This concludes our roundtable hearing. We have exhausted all items on the agenda. Thank you again, everyone, for coming and your continued hard work. And thank you to our CQA officers for their continued support and efforts to protect our borders. It is now 1:39 in the afternoon. This hearing is adjourned. Thank you very much.